Yeah, we're on, people. It's the first. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, live from the nation's capital, you're listening to the Exceptional Conservative Show. I'm your host of the Exceptional One, Ken McClinton. Glad to have you present. Love you dearly. Mary Brockman's in our chat roll. She's my official bouncer. If you diss her, you diss me. Whoop, you will be dismissed. Deborah Blair's in there tonight. All right. Fresh from the Caribbean. Love you. Glad to have you here tonight. And Dave Milner, my boy, is up in the camp. He is the unpleasant blind guy. And you got a whole lot of goodness coming to you tonight. This is sneak peek night for those who want to get the whenever we getting early. Yeah. New Day Black and Red. That's right. We're live from Philadelphia. So what we're going to do for you crazy kids following along at home, we're going to do our Pledge of Allegiance, you crazy kids. And then after that Pledge of Allegiance, we will go directly into our show preparation for Saturday, New Day Black and Red. The host will be Dr. Michael Jones. I am his faithful sidekick. I bring him his water along with his vial of cocaine. Any way you get ready for the show, you can. There you go. Don't tell him I said that because it's not true. It's not true. He's a great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us say the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America. And in fact, let me just bring that right on up here. Go ahead, Miss Tracy, tell them.
Hi, this is Miss Tracy, and we're going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So take your right hand and put it on top of your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we go. Thank you, Miss Tracy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, because I got to take a risk on Skype again. Skype is a friend to the unpleasant blind guy. Really is. And only reason I use Skype is because the unpleasant blind guy said I had to. But beyond that, I would not be using it. I love the unpleasant. I love Dave Milner. And we're going to play something from Dave Milner later on as we go to a break. We love you, Miss Tracy. We need to call right now Dr. Michael Jones, because Dr. Michael Jones is about New Day Black and Red. He is about giving a biblical as well as a constitutional viewpoint on the issues of the day. And also he has a big announcement he wants to make, of course. Well, we're going to get it out of him. That's what we're going to do. Blind Mojo. It is the greatest professor ever to put a beanie on his head, Dr. Michael Jones. I thought I shut that already. Yes, you did, sir. You're always right. You're absolutely correct, because you are the most powerful, influential conservative in all of America. Thank you, sir, for being.
I have to confess that I was wrong once. Turns out I was mistaken.
Really?
I was, yeah. And everybody, I'd like to introduce the exceptional conservative, better known as Tito the Sidekick.
Oh, yes, sir. That's orange juice you're drinking, sir. Thank you so much for being on the air with us. um,
Well, everybody has a cross to bear.
everyone, every single one of us.
Yeah.
You know.
Speaking of that, I found out that the real reason you didn't want me to go up to Washington, D.C. to carry crosses is because you thought I'd be invisible in the snowstorm.
No, no. Actually, I didn't want the riot to break out. A white man carrying a cross. Oh my God!
I even got one of my sheets off the bed. Because it was cold. I figured if I had a sheet, it'd keep me warmer.
It certainly would have. It certainly would have. You're listening to New Day Black and Red, right out live from the wonderful studios in the city of brotherly love, WNJC 1360 AM. And that is the birth home of the benevolent dictator, the kindest, most gentle man in all of the world who loves Mary more than I do, Rick Trader. Well. That's up for debate.
I know I'm not Mary's favorite, I tell you that. At 8 o'clock, she doesn't let the door hit her in the butt on the way out of my show to yours.
Oh no, not Mary. Mary happens to be one of my executive producers and clothiers. Mrs. Biggs is also executive producer and clothier. They make me look good before I go on the air. I have a standard I have to live by with Mary and Mrs. Biggs. You know, I go through a great inspection before I go on the air, sir.
Yes. Well, since my audience has dropped from 1 million a week to 5, yeah, I don't have standards anymore.
Oh, but you have a wonderful program, the Underground Professor, and your shows come on what days, sir?
Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. 6 to 8 on Sunday and 7 to 8 on Tuesday, Thursday.
Now, before we get into the topic tonight about democracy versus republic, Cruz versus Clinton, and looking at a biblical aspect of the individual versus the collective, I was listening to your show. I was one of your 5 listeners.
I didn't do it.
I was listening to your Tuesday show. I did get a chance to listen to your Thursday show, but on the Tuesday night, you made a announcement about running for something, and it was in the bathroom. Can you expound?
I was supposed to do that tonight, but I
well,
forgot.
this will be breaking news on New Day Black and Red before you go on the air Sunday for everyone else, because I'm quite certain that you will be interested in breaking that news right here on New Day Black and Red.
Okay, just between you and me?
Just between you and me. No one else listens to my show, although it's the #1 urban show in America.
Number 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, yours. Yours first. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, you're right. It is #1 while I'm on.
And thank God for you, man. My ratings go so far up.
Well, here it is. I have told everybody that if you want to save the country, you have to get involved in party politics.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to run in the party and become active. Whether you're an elected official in the party or just a volunteer or a paid employee, whatever. But if you get involved with the party, then you can shape the party's stance on things. And while the establishment has the majority of people in the Republican Party right now that actually work for the party and perform party politics, then the establishment's viewpoints are going to reign and be superior. And so in order to overthrow them, we have to get involved in party politics. And one of the ways you do that is by, after the election, the precinct has a convention right after the polls close, 30 minutes after. Now that's changing. Some places are voting to do it on another day.
Yeah.
But for the standard on most places, most cities and local areas, they have it right after. Then you become a delegate to that precinct convention, and then you can become a delegate to this, the county convention or senatorial district convention, and then your state convention, and maybe even the national convention. And part of the jobs of people that become delegates are to select the next level of delegates and to put party platform planks in the party platform and to elect electors at the state convention who are going to represent the state for the presidential election, things like that. There's a lot of things we can do. And it's where you influence the politicians too, because it's those people that the politicians turn to get elected, and they know they owe them. And so this is why we need to get involved. And I have told people over and over on my show, find out if you have a precinct chairman. And if you don't, then apply for it. And you can get elected as your precinct chairman, and often voting for yourself is enough because it's not a very well turned out part of the election ballot. And then you start the process. You become an election judge for your precinct, and politicians will contact you and ask for your support. And this is important. It's integral because think about this. When Bush lost to Clinton, had 9 people in each county voted differently, then Bush would have won. And that's, how hard is it to get 9 people to show up
Well,
to vote?
Bush did win.
Right?
Bush did win that election.
No. Daddy Bush.
Okay. Hey, because listen, I did my very best to make sure that those boxes never made for count. So.
Well, Bush really, there's a lot of arguments his heart wasn't in it and whatnot, but, Clinton became president, and then we got Bush Jr. and, et cetera and whatnot. But,
there you go.
But originally, let's think about this now. There are a ton of elections where if just one person in each district voted differently, then we'd have a different president, a different senator or whatever.
That's true.
And so a precinct chairman, one of his jobs is to get people to the polls, to contact people, say, hey, make sure you go to the poll. Do you need a ride? Can you do this? Who are you voting for? What are you supporting? Here's my thoughts. And people go to their precinct chairman and ask them often what's going on and what they think in a precinct that's politically active. Not very many are anymore, but you can influence and change and move votes. Well, I keep telling people what to do. I've decided I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm running for precinct chairman, and which is the lowest level of political office you can run for. I've done it before. I've won before. But anyway, I'm doing that. I'm becoming the precinct chairman of my precinct, and I'm going to be becoming re-involved in party politics here in Texas. So when do they get a load of me?
Congratulations. Now that's what we love to hear. And if you're listening, I know you are around the world, but certainly in Philadelphia, all you conservatives need to come out of the closet. It's very easy, and someday you'll actually get laws passed to protect you. So come on out of the closet and run for precinct captain, run for delegate to the conventions. Get out there. They need to hear from you. And you might be swaying me to do something, and I'll be talking with my wife about it soon. Something that hasn't been done here in a long time. So let's see. Congratulations, sir. I'm very proud of you. And I promise you that everyone in Chicago will vote 3 times for you.
Yeah, especially the dead.
That's a guaranteed vote.
These precincts are broken up to like about 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the voter pool. And like I said, a handful of people voting will choose who their precinct chairman is. But I don't think it's going to be contested. We don't have a precinct chairman in our precinct. Haven't for a few elections, and so it doesn't look like people are breaking down the door to do this job. But I'm going to do it. It will give me something to talk about on my shows, keep you guys informed, and give me access again to party politics, information that I don't have on the outside, and influence with politicians and whatnot. It comes with a lot of perks like that.
There you go.
You get to be a delegate to the conventions. It's a lot easier to be a delegate to each level convention if you're a precinct chairman than it is if you're just a slug bug that shows up.
Exactly. It's easier to get chicks too, because everyone digs the
I hope
precinct
so.
chairman. There you go. Everyone digs him.
Being single, you know.
Hey, big boy, are you a precinct chairman?
Why, yes.
Oh, the most influential man in the world. Congratulations. I'm very proud of you. In all seriousness, I'm very proud of you. That's an encouragement for a lot of conservatives who would normally not take that step, the step that's necessary to keep our country free. You're listening to New Day Black and Red, 1360 AM, WNJC, out of the lovely city of brotherly love. And that's Philadelphia, PA, to some of you who didn't know. And we're listened to on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and the home of the Krispy Kreme governor, Chris Christie. And this weekend is Super Bowl in New Hampshire weekend, of course, for everyone following at home.
Super Bowl in New Hampshire?
Yeah, Super Bowl in New Hampshire. This is that weekend. Everyone likes to go to New Hampshire at least once in their lifetime. Not a great.
It is a beautiful state.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, and it's damaged every year by New Yorkers that like to travel up there to see the leaves falling, and get syrup.
Hey, speaking of New York, Ken, 2 police officers in the Bronx were shot and are in hospital right now. I don't have any further details, but pass on prayers for them and their families and everything.
Lord Jesus, we ask right now that you bless the families of those police officers, provide for their every need according to thy most precious will. Lord God, heal them in their beds this particular day. And Lord God, make their recovery soft and sure, and give peace, Father God, to their families. And Lord God, for those who have protected those who have done this heinous act, may your light become ever glowing and ever bright, so that they cannot hide in that darkness any longer. Bring them to justice according to your name. In Jesus' name we say amen.
Amen.
Listen, I know a lot of you all don't get that kind of thing on a conservative talk show, but I've learned not to be afraid or ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation, first to the Republican and then the Democrat, or socialist. If you can't tell the difference, it doesn't matter.
Well, you got to bring Bernie in eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Bring him in from outdoors because he could freeze tonight.
You're going to like the end of my show tonight that I did when you finally get around to hearing it next month. There's a professor in Oklahoma that's talking about how the school system has failed the youths of America.
Did you just say youths?
Socialism and Bernie Sanders.
Wow.
So I read his letter, but I ran out of time, so we're going to bring that up on Sunday's show and reintroduce the letter, and then we're going to talk about what he got right and what he got wrong.
Good.
And I think that's going to be an interesting.
And what time is your show, sir?
On Sunday, 6 p.m.
6
Central Texas time, God's time.
God's time, exactly. Because God only shows up in Texas.
He made Texas on the 7th day. You know, he wanted someplace to rest, so he made Texas.
There you go.
Pick up his cowboy boots, sit back, fill his hat, have a lone start.
There you go. This is what heaven looks like on earth, Texas. Can I quelch a myth or concern that Karl Rove put out last night? A couple of nights ago on television.
Now what's he done?
And I mean, who knew Karl Rove, right? But this,
he was gone.
he absconded with $200 million in a lot of political races the last time around. But there is this great myth that Ben Carson was robbed on Monday in Iowa, that somehow, magically, Ben Carson lost so many votes that if he had gotten the votes that he lost because of that damaging tweet from Congressman Steve King, if he had gotten those votes, that he certainly would have been in the top three. I want to go over very quickly, just by the numbers and facts, okay? Because there are only 99 counties in Iowa. And apparently, Karl Rove stated that if he had taken like 4 or 5 votes from each of those counties, it would have made a big difference to Carson. No.
Like what I just talked about.
No, it wouldn't have made a difference for Carson because Ted Cruz got the highest number of votes, period. 51,000 in all time in Iowa. 51,666. And he got 8 electoral votes, or at least delegates to the electoral college. Donald Trump.
But he got 30. He had 30% of the vote. That's it. He had
30%. That's right. He had 28% of the vote overall. Round that up to 30. So you're absolutely right, Professor, as you always are. Brown-nosing sidekick. Here we go.
I keep changing things till I get it right. And I'm always right.
That's right. Donald Trump came in second with 45,427 votes, 24% of the popular vote, and he received 7 delegates to the Electoral College. And then Rubio was third. He had 43,165 votes, 23% of the popular vote he achieved. And he also received 7 delegates to the Electoral College. I don't know how they break this down where he gets 7, being 2,000 votes short, but however way. 7. Okay. And then Ben Carson got an extraordinary high number of popular votes. He got 17,395. That number again, 17,395, or 9% of the of the popular vote, and he received 3 delegates.
That's not your strong suit, but at least 30,000 people would have voted for Carson if they hadn't heard about this.
See, that's what I keep hearing. I just don't know where those 30,000. So obviously, Ted Cruz would have only had 21,000 votes, and Carson would have won with 47,000 votes. There you go.
Well, maybe he might have had 100,000 if it hadn't been this, but you'll never know now. Let's look at some interesting facts on this. First off, there is no data out there of how many people even saw the stupid tweet by a staffer of Cruz, right?
Yep.
And then we had no data on how many saw it, and then how many it affected, and how many switched their votes because of this. But at the same time, and I just spent an hour talking about this on my show earlier tonight, and that is, you don't hear anything out there whatsoever about the Rubio letter, the one that Rubio himself put out, saying, vote for Trump. I'm not going to win Iowa, so vote for Trump so that we can isolate Cruz and knock him out so that he'll suspend his campaign.
Wow.
And we don't hear anybody mention about the fact that Rubio tried to stage, and see, Rubio didn't realize that Fox News was going to run his flag up the pole and become the official sponsor of the Rubio campaign. And so Rubio thought he was going to lose. Had he not put that letter out, he may very well have won, and Trump would have come in third. Rubio could have been second or first place. And there actually is an argument to be made that could have happened. But who knows?
You know.
Yeah, but you see, this is all, you can tell that this is being staged by the players of the media and the establishment Republicans, because you don't hear anything about the establishment darling of Rubio and what he did. It's all Cruz, all bad, all the time. And that tells you that the left, the media, and the establishment in our party are scared to death of Ted Cruz.
There you go.
And this is why they're pulling out all these stops on him.
And
of course, you know, if you have Karl Rove out here running numbers and getting his little whiteboard out and showing how Rubio would have won, all I can remind you is when Megyn Kelly was running around between the studios schooling Rove on his political numbers, and that Megyn Kelly was right and Rove was wrong then too. Rove's success rate for getting candidates elected, Ken, is 2.7%
wow.
victorious. He doesn't even have a 3% victory margin. And I don't know why people give him money or give him the time of day, other than the fact that they're crony capitalists and they want corporatism to succeed. And that is the truth about what Rove pushes, is corporatism and crony capitalism. So that's why he gets the support. That's why the Chamber of Commerce supports him, and that's why the establishment loves him. But he's very seldom ever right.
You know, I thank God that there will be listeners to this particular program, either collectively when we come together on Saturdays on New Day Black and Red on WNJC 1360 AM on Saturdays at 5 o'clock, or individually when we do our own programs. You do it on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I do it from Monday through Thursday from 9 to 11. But we give people the truth, the frank facts. So you can't shirk those. And there's no mathematical formula that would have been proven effectual in explaining exactly how Ben Carson ended up, after having spent a longer time period and more money than almost anyone else in Iowa, only came up with 17,000 votes. I can give you the real reason. He didn't win. Whatever he's peddling ain't being sold.
Yeah, they're not buying it, are they?
No.
You know, I don't look at what people are saying about Carson up there, and they're saying that they thought he was too timid, that he was too quiet, and that they want a leader, not someone who's going to sit in the background and discuss things. And you know, he's a great intellectual. And you know, when you're a surgeon in the emergency room and stuff, and you do the things that he did, you're not prone to be shouting or go hysterical, over everything. But sadly, when you have people like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump yelling at everything, then it makes it hard not to stand out when you're the quiet guy on the corner. I respect him, and I liked his style, but I don't think it was conducive for him in this environment.
Yeah, well, his style works when you're already in office and you're about the second year in.
He was very presidential.
Yeah,
but he's not president yet.
Exactly. I love Dr. Carson. I wonderful human being, great neurosurgeon, probably always the smartest man in any room that he goes into. Well, except for your room.
I can tell you the real reason Dr. Carson lost.
And what is that, sir?
Well, I pulled my endorsement of Cruz and gave it to Carson the other day when I found out about that shame letter that Cruz put out. And the minute I endorsed Carson was the kiss of death.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
but I suppose I thought Jimmy Carter.
Cruz wins, Carson loses.
I thought Jimmy Carter's would have been the kiss of death, being the endorser for Donald Trump. Yeah.
Carter endorsed it?
In England this week, he made a note that if he had to choose between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, that he would choose Donald Trump. So there you go.
Well, that's all I need to know.
You're listening to New Day Black and Red. I know we haven't gotten to any other format that we normally gotten into, but there's some things that we needed to do some cleanup on this week. And the professor and I are doing that. You can hear the professor on SHR, also Rebooting Liberty, and the Underground Professor Show, and of course, and High Plains Talk Radio.
Number 10 on High Plains right now.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And because it's kind of like the Oscars, I'm not even in the rankings. So
let's just say that they're right now the flavor of the month is vanilla.
There you go. That's it. The flavor of the month now is vanilla. With a
Jada Pinkett is boycotting my show too.
she boycotted my show too. but
Once I heard somebody said that Will Smith and Jada are both homosexual.
Really?
That came out today. Yeah, I heard that. But they're, that Will Smith's her beard, but they're both homosexual. I thought, wait a minute, they got married, they had kids, but they did all that because they wanted to hide their homosexuality. I don't get this. I'm not even sure really what that's about, but I heard that today on radio as I was getting in my car. Someone was talking about that.
Wow.
It's like, oh my God, do we have nothing else to worry about in this country?
Wow. Well, we know who will be the mother and father year for LGBTQ Manual magazine.
So what are we supposed to talk about?
This is what we're supposed to talk about, sir. About to bring that up, sir. I'm very sorry I didn't give you your cue cards as you expected them to be given to you. I know that.
Tell me what to think, so I know what to say.
I need to play this real quick, and because it's part of our cleanup. And then, will you be able to stay on the second hour, or do you have to go?
I can do that.
You can do that. Okay.
No, I'm off tomorrow. I got to move my parents. Their motor coach was totaled, and they've given up. They're not going to buy another one, so they're moving into a apartment tomorrow.
All right.
That one of these like retirement villages, one of those condo things. So we're moving them in tomorrow. So I'm not working, so I can stay up.
Good.
I can't promise you I'll stay awake for 2 hours, but I will be here.
Thank you. The key thing is that your presence is all that matters.
Hey, I give presents out every Christmas Eve.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the great professor, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, he's better known as, and the exceptional one, Ken McClinton. I want to play this clip real quick. This is from Fox News. Brett Baer, who's probably the last journalist that they got.
Explosive revelations tonight in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Harridge has new startling information about what is in the emails the intelligence community has labeled too dangerous to disclose.
The 22 top-secret emails, too damaging to release for national security reasons, have been read by a senior Republican on the House Intelligence Committee.
There's no way that a senior government official who has been handling classified information for a good chunk of their adult life could not have known that this information ought to be classified, whether it was marked or not.
Pompeo can't get into specifics because the intelligence is so sensitive, but said sources, methods, and lies were exposed.
When things get classified top secret, it's about things like where assets are and how our soldiers and sailors and Marines move about the world. When you read those emails, you realize that having them in an unsecured environment certainly put American national security at risk.
Today, Mrs. Clinton again claimed ignorance.
There is no classified marked information on those emails sent or received by me.
Clinton was pressed in the same interview on her signed 2009 non-disclosure agreement, where she acknowledged as Secretary of State markings are irrelevant. Quote, classified information is marked or unmarked, including oral communications. Clinton pointed to her aides.
There has to be some marking, some indication that someone down the chain had thought that this was classified, and that was not the case.
But according to experts, federal regulations require security clearance holders to speak up when classified information is not in secure channels.
Everybody who has a security clearance has an individual obligation to protect the information. You can't just turn a blind eye and pretend it never happened and pretend it's unclassified information.
And the fallout is spreading. Among the latest batch of emails released by the State Department is this exchange between Clinton and then Senator, now Secretary of State John Kerry. Sections are fully redacted, citing classified information. Striking because both Kerry and Clinton were using unsecured personal accounts. And this 2009 email released after a federal lawsuit suggests the State Department senior leadership was trying to make it as easy as possible for Clinton to check her personal email.
The top administrator in the State Department, Patrick Kennedy, who was still there, overseeing the response to all the inquiries about Hillary Clinton, was in on Hillary Clinton's separate email network and system from the get-go.
The Clinton campaign is now calling for the 22 top secret emails to be released, but it's not the State Department's call because the intelligence came from other agencies who have final say on classification and handling. The total now stands at more than 1,580 Clinton emails containing classified information, Brett.
We're just talking one or two, aren't we, sir? That's all.
Boy, I tell you what, I'm guessing what that was about about the classified emails from Hillary Clinton and the State Department, but I couldn't understand anything that was being said.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's probably because it's on my phone speaker, so I'm sure they played okay on your side, but I just couldn't understand it, so.
I'm very sorry, sir. Does this mean I'm going to get fired again this week?
No, but it means you stay number 2.
Thank you very much. Well, the key thing here is that we're getting the news that, and it's beginning to spread like wildfire, per se.
Wildflower? Get up in New Jersey.
Again, certainly, or as you're crossing the border, you all get wildflower. Especially if, wildflower is.
Your Perry League song, and she was writing Wildflower.
Oh man!
Speaking of wildflowers, New Jersey is reporting. NJ.com, the New Jersey website, is reporting that Facebook has stripped 3 New Jersey medical marijuana dispensaries website pages off of Facebook, and it's getting rid of many others. So I guess it doesn't like it as it's calling it a violation of the terms of service.
Wow.
Facebook. So they don't just get rid of conservatives. Now they're getting rid of the pot smoking libertarians too.
Wow, there you go. They're checking out the entire grouping. Now only the pot smoking liberals can remain. That's the way life will be.
That's right. So what were you going to say now? Just a couple of classified emails, that's all?
Just never mind. Listen, the bottom line.
I understand Kerry got caught too now.
Exactly.
On his unclassified phone to Hillary.
Yeah, but Condoleezza Rice. I'm sorry. Powell came out earlier this week. Colin Powell, former Secretary of State, former general, stating that he and Condoleezza Rice also sent classified information via personal server. So what's the big deal? Well, isn't the big deal that you served in the military, and if you were serving on a top secret matter, you wouldn't want that kind of information to be in such a condition that some little teenager over in China would be able to hack it away and give it to Emperor Mao.
Well, I don't know about Condoleezza Rice, because I haven't heard her come out and say it, but I can tell you why Colin Powell's doing it. Because he knows that if people get serious on investigating Hillary and Kerry, that they're going to start pointing out that Colin Powell did it too. And I've never been a big fan of Colin Powell. I didn't like him back when I was at Desert Shield, and he was screwing things up for us over there and getting, in Schwarzkopf's way of executing the war right. And I haven't cared for Colin Powell ever since. I thought he was a hypocrite and a snake in the grass, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised, because he was one of these kind of people back when he was in the Army. He thought he was above the rules, and when he worked in the administration, he thought he was above the rules, and then look what he did, the way he betrayed the very people who elevated him and made him a general, and look how he betrayed Bush. And so I'm not surprised that he violated his oath of office. I'm not surprised he violated the Secrets Act, and I'm not surprised that he would do something like this for his own convenience.
Exactly.
Have you seen the political cartoon on High Plains Talk Radio? It's got Hillary sitting at the Oval Office desk. She's president, and she says, for my convenience, I'm going to need the nuclear launch codes text to me.
High Plains Talk Radio is one of the great. What? You're not on?
I'm doing subliminal. I'm doing subliminal messaging here.
You're doing subliminal messaging. That's right. Because that makes you the quality, high quality, excellent performer that you are when it comes to radio, and you know that's why we all look up to you, sir.
Well, that and I'm on a taller ladder.
Yeah, that's true. It's tough when you're only 5'1".
Yeah. I've always wondered where your center of gravity was when you're as tall as you are wide.
I am the perfect box, people. I am the perfect box. You don't have to worry about me. I'm not falling down anytime soon. You're listening to Conservative Commandos Radio Network. This is New Day Black and Red. It is Saturday, 5 p.m., or at least a little bit later than 5 p.m. We started at 5. You're listening to Dr. Michael Jones, who happens to be the underground professor, and Ken McClinton, who happens to be the exceptional one, known also for his great and wonderful urban conservative experience, known as the Exceptional Conservative Show. With tonight, we were, well, it's kind of like afternoon. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on that. We're looking at the idea of democracy versus republic. And in a sense, biblically taking a look at the individual versus the collective. And so I want to start our conversation before we go into the second half of our wonderful program, which is carried live on WNJC 1360 AM and also heard on SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, and Rebooting Liberty. Did I do a good job, sir?
Yes, very adequate, extremely adequate.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm shooting for adequacy. I listened to your show this afternoon, and there was a question to you about, do you think black people are equal?
Oh gosh, tonight's the first night I haven't been asked a question about black people, but every night I get asked on Periscope, do I like black people? Would I have sex with black people? There's some bizarre question. What do I think about black people? And I'm not quite sure why I get that question so much.
Well, of all the hosts on Conservative Commandos Radio Network, we're all jealous of you because you're the only one who has Obama sending in text messages to you. So.
Well, usually I'm going to get you, sucker. That ain't funny. That ain't funny,
man. So let's begin our conversation and fortify our standard here as being illustrious pioneers of conservative philosophy and bantering.
Mostly the latter.
Mostly, and we do spell it LADDER. Democracy versus the Republic. Cruz versus Clinton. And we will talk about this in just a moment when we come back. And it will be after, and you won't be able to hear this, so don't worry about listening. Go to sleep for about 5 minutes. We're going to play a little clip by Dave Milner, our very good friend. He is the unpleasant blind guy. It's only 3 minutes, but it's worthy of listening. So pull up real close to the
on my show we call him the unscented blind guy.
The unscented blind guy. I love it.
Time for an unpleasant blind guy, conservative bite. The time has come.
All of life can be broken down into moments of transition or moments of revelation.
Our young people are being slaughtered. Our cities are burning. Our workers are idle. We're facing invasion from a people hostile to every principle that over 2.25 centuries of struggle and social evolution have created, and it's being done with the aid of our own government. The time for easy solutions is over. No golden leader is going to emerge and just make things better like in some movie. There is no magic bullet, no quick serum, no fast answer. We've been separated by, manipulated by, and used by the political class. We must abandon the petty, meaningless differences of race, political party, gender, and the other things that the elites have used to divide us. It's time to unite behind the idea of personal liberty. We must now walk through the dark together.
There is a greater darkness than the one we fight. It is the darkness of the soul that has lost its way. The war we fight is not against powers and principalities. It is against chaos and despair. Greater than the death of flesh is the death of hope, the death of dreams. Against this peril we can never surrender. The future is all around us, waiting in moments of transition to be born in moments of revelation. No one knows the shape of that future. We know only that it is always born in pain.
That was beautiful, man. Thank you.
Gonna cry.
You feel it too, man.
I feel your pain.
I feel your pain. Oh, hold me, doctor. Hold me. Hey, don't hold me like that.
Well, I told you, my probation officer says I can't hold you like that anymore.
We love you, Dave. Dave Milner, wonderful piece. We hope that you listen to Dave Milner on SHR Media. You will find him. He is a very candid, a very just awesome commentator, well beyond the means that are given to him. And so we really appreciate him and what he does. But there's a great deal of pain in America. And it's becoming even more onerous as time goes on. We're crossing $20 trillion with the national debt. Our deficiency of spending over $3.3 trillion, $3.3 trillion of a deficit. We virtually are consuming ourselves and killing ourselves. You're seeing that in Ferguson. You're seeing it in Baltimore. You're seeing it in San Bernardino. And our president has the great joy of going to a place like the Muslim mosque in Baltimore and telling everyone that Mohammedan has been a great influence on America. Even Thomas Jefferson bought the book. So there is much in terms of our society that is disdainful, especially when you have a 22-month-old baby who is killed by a father who doesn't want to pay child support, along with her mother. And you also have a little baby in Jacksonville, Florida, who is killed by gang members who escaped. There is much ado in our nation. Professor, how has our move from being a republic to creating a democracy, and you have about 3 minutes to express yourself before we go to a break and get ready for the second half of our program where we talk about democracy versus republic. But how exactly has moving away from being a republic has cost us dramatically in other areas of society?
Well, in a nutshell, by removing ourselves from a constitutionally federated republic to whatever it is today, a tyranny, move towards socialism, fascism. We're not there yet, but we're working on it real hard. What we have done is we've sacrificed freedom and liberties, of course. We have deprived our children of education and teaching them things that are relevant and important, and switched them over to stupid things like racial studies and sexual organ studies, like female studies, black studies, etc., instead of physics and mathematics and whatnot. And we cost ourselves a lot economically because of our infatuation with transferring wealth from productive people to non-productive people. So that's it in a sum. That's less than 3 minutes for a change, but there you go.
Very good. Very well done, sir. Very well done.
Ask me any more. Ask me anything on this.
I'm going to ask you something. Got to ask you something. But and is this what those who accepted that were sold?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not. And it's not what the people who are doing it are selling. Okay? And they know better. That's the worst thing about all this ag. You guys all look alike.
You people.
I was just looking up there and I heard Mary typed in, can I hear what ag? And I saw that, so I was reading it. I transposed his name. But he's number 3 in Urban Talk Radio, so I guess he's okay to talk about.
Yeah, we could talk about him.
Yeah, we'll talk down on him too, because he's only number 3.
It's about time I can be condescending.
But crap, now I forgot about it. we have dumbed our kids down, Ken, and that's terrible. That's the worst thing about all this. You can take our money, you can take our freedoms and liberties, but you've taken knowledge from our children, and you've kept them from being able to be productive citizens and to earn money and to do things and to know what's going on so that they even understand. See, that's what I was talking about earlier about that professor who wrote that letter, was he's lamenting that the students today aren't even cognizant of the fact that by supporting Bernie Sanders, they're eroding the Constitution and they are eroding their ability to succeed. And so what's happening is these students, the youths of America today, the youths are turning to government for solutions and financing because they can't do it on their own anymore. And so they have to have government's help. And then it's going to be pretty soon where the elites are able to tell and do everything they want to us because we're going to ask for it. Franklin's famous quote about sacrificing a little bit of security for a little bit of, sacrificing a little bit of freedom for a little bit of security. They deserve neither. Well, this is what we've done. We have created an entire generation of millennials who don't even know they're sacrificing their liberties in huge chunks, not little bits, but huge chunks, in order to get little bits of government help.
But isn't it also condescending that you have establishment Republicans that will stand before you and tell you that they don't like Obamacare, but they can replace it with something else through the government? Isn't that?
Don't replace it with Romneycare.
Yeah. So
let's not forget that Romney is the co-father of Obamacare. So yes, Ag says, "Clyde cometh before the brain fart." At least it wasn't a dog fart this time. Agador was gracing my show by pointing out my dogs were farting in the background. Some high quality show there.
But I love your dogs.
Television.
I love your dogs because your dogs are fighting the fight against global warming.
They are. I think cows should not get all the credit.
That's right.
For ozone holes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back right after this break. You are listening to New Day Black and Red on the best and most influential urban conservative. Well, really, it's not. I wouldn't think urban conservative. Not the code name that I use for urban.
That's code for
But certainly the most influential urban conservative show out of Philadelphia, program at least, Conservative Commandos Radio Network, home of the benevolent dictator Rick Trader, whom we love dearly because he is a kind and generous and loving person who we really love more than... I can't read this.
Well, you don't get the money if you don't read it. Come on.
Who is better than we could ever think about ourselves. So that, yeah.
Hey, Ken?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Clinton and Sanders are having a debate right now on CNN. And Clinton evidently just told Bernie Sanders to end the very artful smears he's making against her and her status as an establishment candidate. Even the left is using the term establishment now.
We have been very successful.
And they say there's jobs that Republicans won't do.
We will be right back right after this.
I'm a good person. I never bothered anybody. But I can't afford a nice house in a safe neighborhood. I live in a government high-rise. Gangbangers and drug dealers walk down our halls every day. My neighbors and I were scared. We called the police, but they can't keep us safe. Some of us are too afraid to even leave our apartments. But the housing authority told me if I bought a gun to protect myself, they throw me to the streets. If I'm not free because of my address today, what makes you think you'll be free tomorrow? I marched behind Martin Luther King at Selma. I know my rights. Now I have my gun. I am the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
You critics don't define our honor. You try to shame us for doing our job. You teach children to fear us, crowds to attack us, and good people to doubt us. But we will never back down from our sworn duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. We wake up every day, put on our badge, strap a gun to our hips, kiss our families goodbye, and put our lives between the law-abiding and any criminal who threatens their rights. We serve people of every color and creed, men, women, and children in violent, dangerous neighborhoods, because they have the same right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as CEOs, movie stars, and the political elite. We are Americans, and we are the American police officer. We stand with the National Rifle Association of America, and the NRA stands with us. Together, we're freedom's safest place.
I'm a mom, and just like millions of other women, that's why I own guns. We're responsible, we're law-abiding, and we're everything that makes America strong. Every day, we're willing to use a firearm to defend our families. But the media will never tell those stories. If a mom puts a gun to the face of a home-invading thug and makes him run for his life, the story gets buried. But if she's unarmed and murdered, the cameras will be at the scene before the police. It's time for moms like me to speak out. We are the majority. We demand the freedom to defend our families. And we challenge the media to tell the truth about our rights. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
I know you're watching, so pay attention. You hate my freedom, my religion, and my country. You hate me for speaking my mind. You try to control me with violence and intimidation. You think you can muzzle me with fear? Don't ever confuse me for my politicians or my media. I am an American, free-born and free-bred, and I will call you out for who you are. An Islamic extremist who would kill me for my beliefs. You don't intimidate me. My freedom is more powerful than anything you can possibly do, and I will never, never surrender my rights to your terror. I will say what I think, worship according to my beliefs, and raise my children how I see fit. and I defend it all with the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I cower to no one because I am the National Rifle Association of America, and I am freedom's safest place.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back to the most influential, powerful, conservative shows in America. Yes, that's right. When we bind ourselves, the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, and also the exceptional one from the Exceptional Conservative Show, live out of Washington, D.C., Ken McClinton, together in one format where we look at the biblical as well as the constitutional aspects of matters, personal, private, and public. Yes, you're listening to New Day Black and Red on WNJC 1360 AM out of the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, PA. Can also be heard throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the great state of Joe Biden, Delaware. Want to introduce the doctor who has made a house call for the day. Good evening, sir.
Yo.
Man of many words.
All this say Hillary Clinton will be heading to Flint, Michigan on Sunday.
Wow.
And, she's going to use her pantsuits as filters to filter out all the lead. Which may explain why she's got so much baggage in the back.
There you go. Exactly. The rumper filter.
Told me I didn't have enough lead in my britches when I was younger to pull off the things I was trying to do. So maybe Hillary's caught on to this. She's going to go to Flint, Michigan and fill her britches full of lead. just saying.
You know, well, I can't wait till she stands up in some Negro church with that dialect that can only come from the South in the Southern Baptist. I don't feel no ways tied.
Yeah. Have you seen those pictures of her with the poodle and Chelsea Clinton?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen those pictures.
Oh my goodness, you got to Google them. They are sitting there with phones in their hands, leaning over, laughing at each other, and I'm thinking, they're probably laughing at us for being so stupid that we have bought into this. That they're probably sitting there saying, "Can you believe people are supporting me still?" Or "Can you believe I'm not in prison?" Chelsea's saying, "Can you believe I've done zero in my life and I'm a multimillionaire?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simply amazing. The blessings of the Lord are on those who are rained upon and those who are not. Listen, tonight.
That's
Yeah. Listen, tonight we are talking about democracy and the republic, making a comparison between the two. And I'll put this in the chat room for those who follow along at home. This is what we're going to use as the basis for our conversation this particular day. And for some of you all, you have to understand that, let me just make this announcement. If the IRS could have hardware problems, then Flash Player will also have software problems. And apparently, Flash Player is having some significant problems with reloading tonight. So just be gracious, be patient, be kind. It will settle itself out one way or the other. One way. So, okay. I love Shockwave. So, Professor, there are variant different definitions for, depending on who you talk to, in terms of democracy and republic. I'll give you the democracy one, and you can talk with us about the republic. The democracy says that the nation is ruled by the omnipotent majority. In a democracy, an individual and any group of individuals composing any minority have no protection against the unlimited power of the majority. It is a case of majority over man. How does a republic compete against a democracy? Because doesn't majority rule in a republic?
Yes. You have to remember that the smallest minority, politically speaking, is the individual. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And now, in a democracy or in a republic, that means that the individual is sovereign. Okay? And in a democracy, it's group rule. That simple majority, 50% plus 1, then whatever that group decides is what we're going to do. For instance, if two wolves and a lamb are negotiating on who's going to be lunch, they vote, and it's most likely the lamb's going to be on the dinner table. And bring the mint jelly. But in a republic, while the majority tends to win, there are rules and what's the word I want? Protections.
Mm-hmm.
Rules and protections to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority. Ironically, what they didn't do was set protections to protect the majority from the tyranny of the minority, which is what you're seeing today, often. And how does that work? Because there are inalienable rights, and so no matter what, government can't take them from you, whether you're a minority or a majority. For instance, the right to self-defense, the right to bear arms.
Mm-hmm.
We tell you that comes from God. Government can't mess with it. The Constitution says that, and says that government will not infringe on that right. And of course, they've ignored it. So the protections only are as good as the people that you have in government.
Now, according to a comparison of the democracy versus the republic, and I speak on the democracy's presentation here, that the constraint on government is none. There is no constraint on the government. The majority can impose its will on the minority. Isn't that the case in our republic right now? I mean, what's the difference between it?
Well, I used to argue that we should not use the term representative democracy, but I think that's a good term for what we have today, because it's a democracy is turning into one. But we don't have a democracy where we vote on everything. So we do have a representative government, but we used to be a representative republic, and now we are a representative democracy, and there is a distinction between the two. And that is that the rights of, in a representative republic, it doesn't matter if you're represented or not, your rights are protected.
Yeah.
And they're protected against the intrusions and tyrannies of the majority. But in a representative democracy, your rights are only protected as far as the majority is willing to do. And if you can cobble enough people together to take away that right or that property or your money or your kid or whatever they want to take from you, then they can do it. And the Constitution be damned, rule of law be damned. That's what we're seeing today. You're seeing the government take children from parents because they spank them or they don't give them a Twinkie at dinner or they're making them go on the diet because they're too fat or whatever, and then they lose their custody. You're seeing people lose their property because Trump wants to build something in New York. So eminent domain, and you lose your property. Whether or not it has anything to do with actual purposes of eminent domain are immaterial.
Yeah.
They're not because it's for the public; it's for the private. But Trump is not a public individual, and I'm picking on Trump only because he's running for office.
Exactly.
The mall over here in Texas, right beside me, the mall took people's property away so they could expand the parking lot for the mall. And there were people who didn't want to sell, and that was a bad case of eminent domain.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at what Ted Cruz did for you guys up in Washington, trying to break open the Second Amendment, have it reapplied to Washington, D.C.
Exactly.
But there you go. There's some examples of the difference between a representative republic and a representative democracy.
Now,
you have inalienable rights that can't be taken away. In a democracy, it's anything as a go as long as you get the votes for it.
Wow.
And everybody stays as equal as anybody else's. Now, that always changes because in any group you'll have more articulate, clean speakers than others. They'll rise to the top, and they have leadership tendencies, and they'll get people to follow them, and so they can get their will done that way. The same thing happens in a republic, but while we may be able to say things, it's still reserved to the people we hire to do our politics for us. We are not directly involved in most decisions politically.
Now, people often say that Rome is a republic and Greece is a democracy. Is Rome truly a republic? And if it's not a republic, is the United States of America the only example of a true federated constitutional republic?
When you say Rome, you have to say what year you're talking about. They were a republic, and they were an empire, and they were, they had Caesars, and they had, tyrannical leaders. The Senate used to be, it used to be a real republic. And the United States is based on the examples of the Republic of Rome, not the other versions of Rome. Wow, I can't clear my throat for some reason. The United States is no longer an example of a constitutionally federated republic. And we're a republic only in that we still hire politicians and we still vote for them to go do our job for us up in Washington. Other than that, we're not really much of a republic anymore. We're not constitutional, and the federation part of the Constitution has been completely blown away. It's no longer even known. Most people don't even know that when they use the term federal government, they're talking about the state governments also. And they would think you're crazy for saying that. So no, we're not a republic by anything other than the fact that we have the rule of law and we elect our politicians. Beyond that, the rule of law is no longer even something you can really say is us because it's violated by people. I mean, look at what the president's doing alone with his executive orders. Yeah. This is not the rule of law anymore. This is the rule of a tyrant. His pen and his cell phone. And so, while there's still vestiges of it here, it's not completely gone. It's mostly gone. This is why people like you and I are out here banging our pots and pans instead of trying to get attention, because we want people to pay, to learn that this is what they've given up.
Exactly.
And that there's a price to pay for it.
And you're the Cato the Elder, and I am Cato the Younger. I can understand.
That'll work. I'll take that.
Okay. Sovereignty is the next question, because what's the difference between the people and the whole population? I mean, isn't that the same thing? Democracy, we're for the people, aren't we?
Well, the people make up the whole population. But to say that a democracy is the whole population is to kind of speak ignorant. Because, honestly, it is. Because it's not the whole population. Let's look at, we call Greece a democracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not everybody in Greece got a vote. There were only certain people that got votes. The white people, you had to be middle class or better. You had to have land. There were restrictions on who got to vote. In America, we had people who could vote. When this country was first started, it was white males with property, or the equivalent of earning $20 a year. If you earned $20 a year or had property, and I can't remember the amount of acres that was required, but you got to vote. Women didn't vote. Black people didn't vote. Well, there was a time where black people voted, but then that changed.
Yeah.
When, as the country progressed, they started restricting only to white people.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Democrats. Which is ironic, right?
Exactly. There you go. It's true.
Yeah. But so there's always rules. In America, you have to be 18 to vote. So while it's the whole population, well, not the whole population, because you have to be 18. So everybody that's under 18 is part of the population, but not eligible to vote. And that doesn't matter if it's a republic or a democracy. Now, here's what it is. Out of the people eligible to vote in a democracy, everybody votes on everything. Okay, sovereignty is held as a population at large in a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
But in America, specifically, not too many other places, we've recognized that because of God made us and gave us life. He made us sovereign over our own lives. And so we're the sovereign. We're the ones who decide who's going to lead us and everything. And so unlike other places that had tyrants, other places that had Caesars or kings, we said, you know what? We get to choose who's going to be our leader. And they have to follow certain rules. And so the sovereignty is the people. And when you see it say the people, the founding fathers would interpret that to mean every individual, because they didn't see people as groups or group rights. They saw us as individuals. And so when you look at like the Bill of Rights and it mentions the people, that's what it means, every individual. And not, of course, every individual that's a citizen and eligible to vote. And that's another thing I forgot to say is in both cases, it's the citizens. Because if you're not a citizen, you don't get to vote. You don't get to participate.
Well,
and that's changing.
That's
because now we allow illegal aliens to vote as many times as they want because we don't want them to have voter ID cards.
Yeah.
The dead get to vote, and other places, other things get to vote in America, where it should be limited to a citizen of good standing that's 18 years of age and sober. Hey, yeah, that used to be another thing in the American rules. You had to be sober to vote.
And every voting precinct.
Right, if you're retarded as a town drunk, you didn't get to vote.
Wow.
If we did that, then half the Democrat Party would not be able to vote.
There you go. There you go. And the other half would be illegal anyway. So we're talking today with our very good friend, the professor who is host of New Day Black and Red, here on WNJC 1360 AM, also heard on SHR Media, Rebooting Liberty, and as well High Plains Talk Radio and other stations that cater to our networks and present the best in urban and rural and suburban conservative talk. We're talking about democracy versus the republic. And later I'll be doing a biblical study on the concept of the individual versus the collective in the Bible. But we've gone over a series of things that make the democracy different from the republic. And we've also addressed the fact that we are really moving towards a representative democracy rather than being a republic. And corruption has a big part to do with that. Anytime you pay a man to steal from you, he definitely will. Just as it doesn't make sense to pay a criminal not to steal. A criminal will do what a criminal does. And it's the unfortunate thing that corruption comes of it all. But I want to get into the idea of free choice, sir. There are women that say that abortions, while they have to be rare, safe, and legal, it's because I have a free choice that I have rights over the fetus in my body. Guys say that it's my liberty and my right not to join the military. I don't have a obligation to do that. What exactly is free choice in the concept of republic? Because a free choice as amongst a democracy is that individuals may make decisions for themselves except insofar as a majority faction has limited individuals.
Well, here, free choice is limited by some factors, like hurting other people. There's an old saying in the Supreme Court decisions that your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins.
There you go.
That is the test of freedom, that you can swing your fist all you want, but if it hits my nose, you violated my rights then. And so we have, it's interesting you said that about selective service for males. It is now being discussed up in Congress about whether or not females should be required to be on selective service.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, and I think that they should.
I agree with you.
They should, because if they want to be equal and they want to do everything, they want to take all these jobs over in the military and uncommon. There's a lot of shoe clerk jobs, and secretary jobs, and nurse jobs, and things that you can get involved in for that. But they should be. But it doesn't mean you don't have free choice. Selective service in this country is not mandatory military service. What it is it's a system set up that if we have to go to war and we have to have bodies to protect our country and our families and our property, then by God, we can call everybody up and get them in. And so that's what selective service is all about.
No.
Abortions and stuff, well, we have all kinds of rules and stuff, and I don't necessarily agree with all of them. Like say, seatbelt laws. I'm a big opponent of seatbelt laws because if you don't want to wear a seatbelt, the government shouldn't be making you do that. And if you get in a car wreck, then you're out of the gene pool, and you probably won't have stupid kids either. So that's a win-win. But yeah, I don't know. The idea, though, is in our country, you should have the freedom to make most of your choices, and whether you succeed or fail will be based on those choices, not the government choosing your outcome. And in the republic, the government is restricted by what it can interpose and interfere with the Constitution. But in democracy, that intrusion is much easier to promote, generally speaking, because all you have to do is get a majority of people to do it, and boom, it's done. And they can mess with your rights, your freedoms, your decisions, and whatnot. But that's not always the case.
Yeah.
And in our country, we've lost a lot of freedoms and liberties because government's telling us everything we have to do. For instance, I was going to tell you a stupid story about my day job, but I'm not going to get in that right now.
Okay.
But anyway, you've got all these nanny bots running around trying to tell us how we should do things and what we should do. And a lot of them are based on lawsuits, like when you go and you see a ladder and it tells you not to put it on top of frozen cow manure because it could fall out and the ladder could slip, or not to use your toaster in the bathtub while you're soaking in water. Do not put the shirt in the washing machine with the kid in it, things like that. We have these kind of warnings and controls and rules and regulations because we've allowed government to tell us how not to be stupid instead of allowing the gene pool to do that, instead of allowing ourselves to be eliminated from it by our stupidities.
Exactly. It's amazing how those of the leftist bent do all that they can to maintain Darwin in the classroom, but will not allow natural selectivity to happen outside of it.
Right. Well, you know why? Quite honestly, because their constituents would be wiped out. How many Democrats are killed a year through abortion? If they allowed Darwinism to its full effect, then there would be no Democrats inside of 10 years.
Yeah, very well said. And which gets into the political system that we have in our country. And this is not about parties, but there is definitely a difference of thought among someone who is Democratic versus the thinking of a Republican. And this is just thinking now. How does a Democrat think on something versus what a Republican thinks on something?
Well,
and don't say Democrats don't think, because that was an easy answer.
I think you can see that with all these babies that are being born from those mosquito bites where they have the big bodies and the tiny little heads. That's, the next generation of Democrats, I think, could be raised right there. Well, no, Democrat and Republican in the case that we're talking about aren't political parties, but if you are in a democracy, then your thinking will be different than if you're in a republic, because the entire system's different. Majorities rule. Things are much more volatile. You have to be involved in everything. Like for instance, in a democracy, if you want to put a light up, everybody has to vote. You want to buy a box of paper clips because you're out of paper clips in the office. You have to vote. political office, not the business office. But in a democracy, if they need more paper to print on the printers in Congress, then everybody has to go and vote for more paper. And in America, we can just say, you know what, anything you need to do your office, and that's already pre-approved. And we have laws that say that. You have the authority. This law gives the authority to Congress to execute, blah, blah, blah. You look at the Bill of Rights and stuff, and it says things like that. And in the Constitution, in Section 2, Article 2, and stuff, you'll see these things written out like that. But and that's the difference, is we can go and have a group of people up there, and they can make all these decisions and do the minutia and make the laws and make sure that our defense is there, and the government's role is to protect our lives, liberty, and our property. Not to protect us from ourselves, but to protect us from other people's corruption and stupidity. And to make sure that, the rules are the same, that one state doesn't mess another state up on trade or cause protectionism. That's basically what happens in a republic. And in a democracy, the individual has to vote on everything.
Yeah.
It gets time-consuming and a problem and a burden. And also, because of the fact that majority can rule, our founding fathers called that a mob, not a government.
There you go. But also, it tires you out from wanting to be in the political process at all, and they're counting on that, right?
Right. Well, you hear people bitch in America all the time. I can't believe how many commercials I have to see during the primaries. I can't believe how many elections we have every year. I'm so tired of going and having to vote. I'm like, oh my gosh, at least you get to do it. The idea is we get tired of that with the little bit we have to do. Can you imagine if we had to go every day and vote on a whole list of stuff? And we don't pay attention to politics in this country. Most Americans don't know who their representatives or senators are. They can't even tell you who's the vice president. He's been vice president for 7 years. And they can't tell you who he is. But they can tell you who's on Dancing with the Stars, and they can tell you all kinds of crap that come off of their TV. But Can you imagine these people that can't pay attention to anything? Paying attention enough to be able to vote on everything that has to come through on a daily basis. That's just mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling. And so you wouldn't participate. The whole idea is that as much as it's promoted as a participatory system of governance, you wouldn't participate. Yeah. And so it leaves it.
Some did. They had requirements that you had to. And the reason they had those requirements is because too many people quit doing it. And so they forced them to participate.
See.
Look at Russia. Russia was communistic, but they forced people to vote. You only had one name on the ballot, but you still had to go and vote.
Yeah.
And you ran a very big risk if you didn't vote for the one candidate of being found in a gulag somewhere, making salt shakers.
Or making license plates that have the phrase on it, "No taxation without representation" for the District of Columbia.
Right. That was a big seller in Russia. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Underground Professor, Dr. Michael Jones, and the exceptional one, Kim McClinton. We are New Day Black and Red. Our conversation today, what's the difference between democracy and republic? There are significant differences between the two, and the strange thing is that many Americans don't know that they actually have forfeited the great abundance of being in a federated constitutional republic for the sexiness of a democracy, and we need to go back. One last thing before I do the biblical aspect of individual versus collectivism, religion. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about economic systems after the conversation on the faith issue that I bring up. But religion, generally in a democracy, freedom of religion is permitted, kind of like in the Republic of Iran. Freedom of religion is permitted, although the majority may limit religious freedom for a minority faction. You're just not going to find too many rabbis in Iran. You just won't. what's the difference, and why is this difference so important to those Christians who are sitting at home talking about, well, I don't like to be involved in politics?
What you mean when it comes to religion?
Yeah.
Well, when you look at a lot of these countries, they tell you what religion you're going to be.
Yeah.
Look at all the Middle Eastern countries, you have to be Muslim. In England, you had to be Protestant, then you had to be Catholic, then you had to be Protestant. It bounced around. But whatever the king was, you had to be.
Mm-hmm.
In America, and in democracies, you had to be whatever. If the majority of people came together and said, you know what, we're not going to let Baptists anymore come in, then you can't be Baptist anymore. But in America, under the Republican system that we had, constitutional Republican system, what we decided was that it would be a state function, and that your state that you live in would decide what religion you had to have.
Mm-hmm.
And several states did at the time of the Constitution being voted in. Several states had mandatory state religions. But what the Constitution says is that the central government was not allowed to pick a national religion that everybody had to be. Like the Church of England, they didn't want a Church of America over here. So after a while, even the states that had mandatory religions thought, you know what? I think the Constitution of America's got this right. We can let our people decide what they want to be. And so even those states dropped that from their constitutions, to where in America, as long as your religion is a recognized religion, follows the golden rule, doesn't harm people, isn't something that's just based on sex or drugs, or rock and roll, then it can be a religion and it's protected.
Religion is, yeah, you did. Religion is so important. And I am a professed Christian. I believe in Jesus being the Lord and Savior and the Messiah. But I don't infringe upon others by forcing them to believe what I believe. I don't hold any power over you to believe what I believe. But I do believe that you have as much right as I do to believe what I believe. Okay? And I to believe what you believe. So I don't believe that we should ever take away the freedom to worship. But little by little, we do. I want to take you in Scripture to Exodus chapter 1. And in Exodus chapter 1, this is a wonderful, wonderful group of scriptures to read. But I want to take you to the 8th verse. And I want you to understand the power of change in a country, and how not necessarily will it end the way you expected it to. You have the greatest ambitions, but they all seem to lead asunder. The 8th verse goes, "Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph." In the 9th verse it says, "And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we." You see, there was a time when the people of the children of Israel were looked upon graciously. And it was for 13 years in which they stood in Goshen. But after that, little by little, with tribute going to them as a result of the favor of Joseph being upon their lives, and they becoming dependent upon that tribute and that favor, they began to lose little by little their liberty, because people began to see them as a threat, a general threat to the well-being of the country. You see, they were always the children of Israel inside of Egypt. Unfortunately, when you have individuals who may not necessarily share what you believe, and they come in and they are given the welfare of the nation by which they can pose their lives, and they maintain their customs and are set apart from the region by which they are to be a part of, they can be looked upon very severely as a threat. Now, there is a modern day threat in our country that fits that definition. Yet the people of Israel were not that threat in Egypt, but they became a threat nonetheless because people looked upon them accordingly as groups that may arise over the king of Egypt. In the 10th verse, it reads, "Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land." Now, there was an immigration crisis going on here. And it was because the Israelites refused to assimilate to the Egyptian lifestyle. They refused to be, although Joseph had married an Egyptian priestess and had had children accordingly, they maintained their faith in God while the Egyptians maintained their faith in Pharaoh. The Hebrews maintained their faith in God, while the Hittites, who became the new Egyptians, maintained their faith in government. In the 11th verse, it reads, "Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses." So apparently work became the first tool that they used to slay the interests of the Israelites in remaining in Egypt. You see, the Egyptians knew that the Hebrews would do jobs that the Egyptians would not do. The 12th verse, "But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel." In the 13th verse, "And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor." 14th, "And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools," this is the 16th verse, "if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live." Well, why would you choose the woman over the son? The woman may be the seed carrier, but the son would be the seed bearer. You see, even back then, they understood biology. If you get rid of the man in the household and allow the women who will become dependent on the state, you will weaken the populations. In the 17th verse, it reads, "But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive." Often when this is preached or talked of, that verse is skipped over because, well, in most urban churches, your focus isn't on the man, your focus is on the woman. 18th verse, "And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God rather than government, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive." You see, the women had outwitted this king. God will not allow you to destroy his seed, which gives you the opportunity of taking a look at the concept of individualism versus the collective. I know in today's society, many people say that you can have a collective salvation, but that is not the truth. Your salvation is an individualistic one. which is why if you really worked hard, you could get rid of the freedom of religion in our country. Why would you do that? Because you could always extend the promise that you can believe in whatever you believe, but if it becomes a threat to the state, then you can't believe it at all. You can't believe it because collectively we see you as an individual threat. The concept of being individually saved opens you to a republic thought that every individual must choose their God. God has chosen you through Jesus Christ. Not every person will come to that. Every person will be judged according to their own salvation in whom they believe. Some believe that they will go to heaven and have 72 mistresses who have each 72 mistresses waiting for them. It will be sad when they get there, and the only one waiting for them is their Creator. I want you to take a look very quickly at why God created humans. Would you do me a favor and go to Isaiah 43:7 for just one moment? In Isaiah 43, verse 7, it reads like this: everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. God created you for his glory and for his way. Now, that is not a way which is subjective. It is a way which is truly God. You don't have a choice if you choose God in terms of what part of God you're going to follow. You must follow all of him. So he created you to follow him, to glorify him. And then I want you to take a look at Matthew 6:33 for just 1 second. In Matthew 6:33, which I think everyone should consider and preach from one day. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. When you put your neighbor before yourself, that's not collectivism. That really is individual obedience to God. That really is saying that I'm going to seek what is best for the kingdom of God and his righteous sake, knowing that all these things are going to be added to me. Well, it doesn't say added in the sense that, the whole group of people, because of what you did, are going to get all those things or any of those things. It says that this is a promise from God directly to you, the individual. But before you get that promise fulfilled, you must sacrifice yourself for the group. You must sacrifice your ambitions when you know that they are in the way of your family. You have to sacrifice your knowledge of being right sometimes when your workforce around you might be at risk. So what about this collective thing? Is there any room for collectivism in the body of God? Well, not collectivism the way a lot of people want to teach you, that this is somehow God's approval of socialism. God's financial plan works this way. I have given you power to make wealth, Deuteronomy 8:18. And in Corinthians, Paul writes to the fact that what part of whatever you have doesn't belong to God. So in your giving, why not give him everything? And then he goes on to write, quite frankly, give that your joy might be true. So in this individual thought of collectivism, meaning that everyone has to give, what part will you give? Do you have to give up everything? Well, Jesus doesn't want you to. But he does want you to give according to a proportion that will bring him and you joy. Now, they are also warning you scripturally that if you are begrudging in your gift, keep it, for it will avail nothing. The greatest glory of giving is pleasing God. And the greatest glory for you is, quite frankly, being able to serve your neighbor. Loving your neighbor as you love yourself is the second greatest commandment. Loving God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your soul, with all of your strength, strength being your wealth, is the first. When we take a look at Acts 2:44 through 45, it reads, "And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need." But I want you to understand this text because it's taken out of context to justify socialism in the urban churches of today. These individuals at that time believed, and I'm talking about Donald Trump kind of belief. They believed with all of their heart that Jesus was coming exactly tomorrow. And in the sense of coming exactly tomorrow, their material things will be left behind. Why not give them to those who had need of them? And with that mindset in place, they did as any republic would do. They made certain that every individual who had need was met. Not met completely, because then they would have to not work. But would to satisfy, maybe this person didn't work today, maybe provide them with enough to eat for this particular day and now get out there and find something to do. So they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And I want you to focus on need because, quite frankly, in a democrat system, you move from having the surplus in a republic to having only needs. That means that there will always be a lack. And eventually you get to the understanding that government doesn't help you in meeting all of your lack, but it will prevent you from creating any type of surplus. Now I want you to go to one other scripture, and I'll close this out for final comments with the professor. I want you to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, in the 12th chapter, first verses through 3, it reads this way. "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were led astray to mute idols. However, you were led. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking in the Spirit of God, no one speaking in the Spirit of God ever says Jesus is accursed, and no one can say Jesus is Lord except in the Holy Spirit." Many of us today are being led by those who do not mind spending their time in mosques that are being interviewed by the FBI for the sake of terrorism. They have no problem putting down Christ in other places. They're not mute, but they certainly are filled with idol. You, my friend, have been called out to be led by the Lord. Now, whether you're in New Hampshire and Vermont or whether you're down in deep South Texas, the bottom line is that you have gifts, and those gifts are to be led not by your idolistic thoughts, but by a commitment to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit will lead you and guide you into all truth. And that's how you know you're making the right choices in life, because the righteousness of God is fulfilled, and as well, His truth is revealed. Collectivism, you have a collective endeavor to save the world. Individually, you must understand, not everyone will be saved, but you have a chance to today. Professor, your thoughts, your commentary.
Can you repeat all that? I missed something.
Oh, thank you. Where do we start? Section 3, Article 2.
Wow. Huh?
Okay, sir.
You know, I think if the courts had been fair, then if a woman had an abortion, she should have to pay the male for it, because it's half his property too. Half of his, half of his DNA goes into it, and so the baby's half his. So he should be able to either veto an abortion or be compensated for the loss of his property.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so should we call them for that? You know, of course that would piss off. You know, you want to piss off a feminazi, say that to them. And, you know, because somehow they think they have all the rights. That the rights of the woman supersede the rights of the baby, and they supersede the rights of the father. And you know, and you've really got to have some convoluted justice to think that.
Yeah.
You know, first off, it's not her body; it's something that's inside her body, and it was put there, you know, through actions of the mom and the dad, and unless she's some kind of in vitro fertilized person, then you know, the man has the rights to it. But instead, in our society, if the woman wants an abortion, the man has to pay for it. If the woman wants the baby, then the man has to pay for it, then pay child support too. And you know, and then the woman gets to decide if he's going to have visitation or if he's not going to see the kid or not, or you know, what the kid's name is, where the kid's going to do this, what the kid's going to do that. The woman gets to decide everything. And yet, all we hear about is how we're a patriarchal society, and that men are oppressing women and they're a minority, even though they're 53% of the population, even though, or 51% of the population, and in college, or 53% of the students are, you know, female. We're being told that it's male-dominated society. And I don't get it because I don't see it.
Wow. You know,
women decide when they're going to have sex. Men don't get to decide that. I mean, it helps the fact that we usually will have sex anytime a woman says yes, but women can say no, and we have to respect that. And ironically, I think that's one of the problems in our country, believe it or not, is that because of our constitutional society, the rule of law, and the fact that we recognize the individual as a sovereign in our country, we give those powers to the women. But in a lot of societies, go look in the Middle East at what the power a woman has.
Yeah.
Look at all the videos that are around when a woman talked while a guy was singing, and he gets up and starts beating the living crap out of her, you know, because she had the audacity to talk while he was singing. And you know, so they have sex when they're told. They do what they're told. They have their sexual organs mutilated because their husband says so. They can't even go to an airport without permission in writing from their husband. I mean, you know, no, please. You know, it's just amazing to me that women don't understand how good they have it in this country, and that the actual power and the ability to think and decide things for themselves, because we're a constitutionally federated republic. And they should be out there fighting to protect it instead of fighting to destroy it. Because if we don't have this, women aren't going to have the freedoms they have, and they're not going to be able to make these decisions and do the things that they want. They'll become property again. And they'll become property because if the rule of law doesn't protect them, and we don't recognize and defend the rule of law and the Constitution, then we go the other way. And that is that if you have enough physical force, you get your will done. Yeah. And that's where the Middle East is run. Man makes the rules because the man's the strongest creature. And he can physically force the woman to do what he wants. And so that is where we will head in this country if we abandon the rule of law and constitutional republicanism.
I have to ask you though, and I am not a Philistine. I believe that women have the right to stay in the kitchen and could cook and clean and raise babies. See, I fully evolved. But
I believe that women have the right to feed me grapes and to wait on me hand and foot during football season.
See, that is evolution. That we have evolved as men. But this concept of the woman in the no, even her yes could be no nowadays. It's
well, that's right. Especially if, you know, remember I did a show not too long ago about the liberal ideas versus conservative ideas, and that if you see, you go to these states and cities that are run by Democrats. You go to the college campuses that are run by Democrats. You go to Hollywood, which is run by Democrats, and you see that there's a problem with rape. There's a problem with racism. There's a problem with sexism. On and on and on. There's all these problems. And then you go to the places where the Republicans that are running it or conservatives running it, and you don't see these problems. You go to the college campuses that are conservative, like Hillsdale and Liberty University, and you don't have a rape crisis, and you don't have a race problem, etc. And it's because of what Democrats stand for.
Yeah.
And the concept of that we're oppressing people. If you ask a lot of these kids and millennials and Democrats in general, go and ask them questions like, which party oppresses people? And they'll tell you the Republican Party. I saw something just today where one of the libtards out there was saying, isn't it amazing how all of the mass murderers and white genocide people, the white supremacy people, rather, are all in the Republican Party? And I laughed so hard because it's actually the other way around.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to end gun violence in America, you just have to take away Democrats' rights to have guns, and gun violence would be almost nil instantly. But the idea that Democrats' history has nothing to do with slavery and oppression of women and of black men, blacks in general, blows my mind away. And they don't understand. They don't know. And yet they are actively participating in things that are losing their rights and privileges and responsibilities while screaming at the top of their heads that it's people like you and I that are taking away their rights. Because we're trying to protect the rights of a baby, we're oppressing them. Because, we don't think there should be laws mandating what people get paid or what people can do, or we're oppressive.
Yeah.
Because we don't think that government should recognize the legality and morality of homosexual unions, and that simply that they can't force churches to marry them, and they shouldn't be involved in the business of it one way or the other. The government should just stay out of it. Then we're oppressive. And if you'll notice, every time we're actually trying to protect and defend people's rights and privileges and freedoms, it is turned around as how we are oppressing them or trying to make them live within our morality. And they don't understand that morality, very loosely, that morality is what encapsulates our freedoms and liberties through the Constitution.
Very well said. Professor, it is always a great honor to have you on the air with me on Thursdays, and also on Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on New Day Black and Red. The host with the most.
I just want you to know that you are very good at preventing me from getting on there and bocarding your time. I tried 3 times this week to bocard, and I can't get to do it.
That's because you have trained me well, sir. You have trained me well. To our benevolent dictator and wonderful friend, Rick Trader of Conservative Commandos Radio Network, to SHR Media, to Rebooting Liberty, to High Place Talk Radio, Spreaker also for the Ag Master out there, and so many of you who tuned in this particular day via Ustream live stream. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to New Day Black and Red with your host, Dr. Michael Jones, who is the host of Underground Professor. The sidekick, Tito Jackson, better known as Ken McClinton, the exceptional one from the Exceptional Conservative Show. We're running out of time, and I just want to say thank you to all. I want you all to remember, without a shadow of a doubt, a good friend of mine once told me, do not die a coward. I promise you, I'm going to live bravely every single day. And that includes understanding that God has blessed America. Now it's time for America to bless God. We'll see you again next week. God bless. Hoo-ah. Good night, sir.
Good night, my friend.
All right.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
I will.